Probiotics, are they just a scam? Is it just another one of these scams that come along, a fad, a get-rich-quick scheme? I mean, I know people have thought that. Because someone who's listened to our podcast and is consuming our content, they're asking that question. Is it just a scam?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people, for clarity, it's not a scam. I said yeah after that.
Well, now convince me. Give me a couple nuggets that I can sink my teeth into.
Welcome to Integrative Health Chats, where we discuss the current health topics everyone is talking about. We'll find our way together as we share the tools and information necessary to make better health decisions for yourself and your family. The path to a healthier and happier life is within reach for each of us. You just need to know where to start and need some friends to help support you along the way. Now, the following podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Please do not apply any of this information without the approval from the appropriate healthcare professional.
Hey everyone, this is John Paul with Integrative Health Chats. I'm excited to try to take this conversation in a presumptive different direction. What I mean by that is I have Dr. Phil here. Hey Phil.
Hey John.
And I have Justin here.
Hey John.
It is great to be with you guys because I'm going to pretend that I can reach out into the minds of persons who have been our audience, who bought our products. I'm going to pose a question to both of you. I would love to hear what your response is. And I think people who we are going to predict their questions will know the answers to as well. At least it'll be a fun conversation. How's it sound? So,
wait, so what are we talking about, John Paul?
So I'm going to pretend to be asking this question. I'm looking at the Integrative Health website and I see that there's CBD, there's probiotic, there's this thing called Myomax, which sounds a little funny. But like probiotics, are they just a scam? Is it just another one of these scams that come along, a fad, a get-rich-quick scheme? I mean, I know people have thought that. Because someone who's listened to our podcast and is consuming our content, they're asking that question. Is it just a scam?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people, for clarity, it's not a scam. I said yeah after that.
Well, now convince me. Give me a couple nuggets that I can sink my teeth into.
I think it's a great question, John, because I mean, a lot of people have taken a ton of.
Yes.
Let me rephrase that. There are a lot of probiotic supplements out there. There's a lot of CBD supplements out there. There's a lot of vitamins. There's a lot of protein powder out there. Okay, yeah. And everyone has their stories of, oh, I started taking that, and oh my gosh, it did not work with me.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and that the probiotic front is just peppered with people that have had various experiences, we should say, good and bad. Although, and so your question is totally valid because there's so much mixed opinion on it. I'll give an answer later, but I agree with your question.
No,
that's got to be on a lot of people's minds.
Counselor, I want an answer now. No, seriously. If it is it a scam? What's the answer?
Are you asking us as individuals?
Yeah.
So I've had problems with digestion for years. So I've been underacting. So I have hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. So it messes naturally with your digestive tract, right? I've tried a lot of probiotics out there, and they haven't done much for me. I've even doubled the dose.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you're going to the bathroom, what's going on with your body. Mm-hmm. And I would say digestive-wise, in the last 4 months has been life-changing. Mm-hmm. Now, I've implemented some other things in there, as in eating better, things like that, but I believe in this probiotic that we're rocking.
Great. So that's a personal testimony right there to a skeptic.
And to IHChats' defense, it is also one of our more popular products that's coming off the website. It has to be doing something, and a lot of it's return customers, which that speaks volume.
Yeah, it's funny. I will testify to someone who's been on the side of recommending probiotics that I thought were effective, that turned out to not be effective, and then finding the one that was effective.
Wow.
Right? So it's funny because...
So you could speak right now and say probiotics, it's not a scam. It's a real thing. There's actual bacteria that I have in my gut that I need to like take care of. Like that's a real thing.
Correct. That's a great way to phrase it. We know scientifically that our body is the vast majority of our body is bacteria. We have more bacterial cells than we actually have cells that make up our body.
Wait, say that again.
Okay, so if you take total cell count of your body, okay,
isn't it like 5 trillion or something like that?
Give or take
Whatever.
a trillion,
Yes.
whatever. We are, I think, 10 times more bacterial cells.
Holy cow!
So if you just got rid of just the human body cells, all right, cells that came from your DNA generated cells, if you got rid of all those cells, you would still have 10 times more of bacteria, different organisms that make up your body. So by pure cell count, you are more bacteria that did not come from your DNA.
Wow.
Cells that do not generate, are not generated by your DNA, that came from your mama and your papa and the ground you walk on, as well as your environmental exposure. And that doesn't just include bacteria, that includes fungi and yeast and all these other things. Like, anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent.
You have one time said that you're basically like a walking Amazon rainforest.
There's a doctor, a foremost authority on the biome, uses that analogy. You are a walking rainforest.
Okay, so this is actually very helpful. So think in your mind of the Amazon rainforest, and every school kid was taught about all the biodiversity that's there, the plant, animal life, and so now that's on me, in me, on me. That's what I am. That's a very helpful analogy. Okay.
Right.
So probiotics addresses what part of that?
Well,
Amazon rainforest.
Here's maybe a way to take it a little broader.
Okay.
Okay. That Amazon rainforest is only one area. The biome you have in your gut, the biome you have in your face, the biome you have in your ear, the biome you have in your mouth are all different.
Oh, wow. Okay. So each is its own rainforest.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're
Nice. Ecosystems upon ecosystems.
Correct.
Wow.
I think some people get misconstrued when they sit there and say, they talk about microbiome, they think it's all purely bacteria. So when you say that would be
Guilty? That's what I thought.
microbiota.
Yeah. Okay.
But microbiome includes all the other properties that work with that bacteria. So including, fungi, you name it, whatever is in there. Like, there's some fascinating stuff and discussions when you get into all the different organisms that exist within your gut, both good and bad, and how actually, because of a certain level of bad stuff, certain bacteria that wouldn't be in there is in there fighting it, which you really need. So there is a relationship between, even within your gut,
Wait, is that then a probiotic? Is a good bacteria? That's
So there's by definition, probiotic is going.
Which I think of probiotics, I think of yogurt. The yogurt industry did an amazing job of saying,
"Oh my,
there is
gosh.
probiotic in this yogurt. Eat this yogurt, and you'll have probiotic." So that's also what's in my mind right now.
Right, which mostly.
So is there little bits of yogurt in my belly right now that's doing the job?
Wait, is yogurt alive?
Yogurt is alive,
Man.
but that bacteria predominantly dies in the acidic environment of your gut. Now, certain strains that they put in yogurt, they do fine, but this is the debate with probiotics when you really dive into it. So it's funny you bring up yogurt, because in my family's journey for finding the ultimate probiotic, there was a company that we got their yogurt because they were touting like 200 billion strains as being the ultimate yogurt for colonizing your gut. And I had listened to a nutritionist talk about how well this yogurt was working in patients. So I was like, sign me up. It's a little pricey, but I was like, it's going to be an experiment. So we're going to try it. And it was definitely an experiment. And
what happened? I'm on pins and needles over here.
Let's just say it did a really good job cleansing your colon.
Okay.
But I think that's the experience a lot of people get with probiotics initially, right? Is it just
and White Castle? That's where I thought you were going with this.
See, we grew up with White Castle down the street, although we rarely ate there, but growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, there was a White Castle. I remember at the corner.
There was.
I have not been in one of those in a long time. Are they even around anymore?
Yeah, they are.
Okay,
for sure.
Yep.
Well, it's like
No, I haven't had them in a long time.
You're not going to find probiotics in
Not yet.
Not yet. That's a really good point. So we did the yogurt thing. It was not working.
Okay.
And go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, that was what I wanted to know. So it didn't work.
Yeah, it totally blew out the bowels too much. And the question is, why, right? So when that wasn't working, I was in the course of research, found the work that was coming out of Microbiome Labs with Kieran Krishan and his Megaspore, and the whole idea of a spore-based probiotic. And also Josh Axe does that. His SBO probiotic is a 3-strain bacillus with a few other...
SBO meaning spore-based. Soil-based organism. Okay.
So the whole idea is that, we are losing touch with where our food comes from. And if you think about when you are growing your food, your hands are in the dirt, there's organisms that exist within the soil that, if you're taking an evolutionary twist on this, what they are advocating is that because our ancestors came out of the earth, like the earthworm, think about what an earthworm does, right? It breaks the soil down, and these other organisms leave in the soil all of this amazing bacteria that then works with the plants that are growing. See, what's amazing, I feel like every conversation comes into CBD, but here's what people don't understand that's so cool about what is becoming public knowledge. Because when you talk about growing a hemp plant, the environment that hemp plant is in, if you alter the environment, you alter the properties of the plant at the level of like terpenes and other things. That gives you a different product. So
to help my mind with that would be, in grade school, you stuck celery in food colored water, and you could watch it. This was just to teach capillary movement, but you could watch it absorb it. So you're saying like a hemp plant is going to take it in, and you could either have red, which is a certain type of terpene profile, or you could have blue.
Yeah,
so that matters what's in the soil.
Soil and environment affects...
Soil is not soil.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you destroy the good bacteria in the soil, you're going to have a poor crop. But they've been able to genetically engineer all these different plants now to grow in soil that's honestly, in essence, poorer soil. So now but that compounds. So you're not creating the same plant.
Oh, wow.
So on an entire holistic integrative level, having the least amount of intervention, non-natural intervention, because what ends up happening is you've got a plant that is not a plant that grew up with the same bacteria in that soil. So whatever that bacteria's job was to help that plant in a way that was helpful isn't going to work the same way.
Okay, so let's do a little thought train here, connecting the engine and the caboose. So we started with the question, my skeptical question of, is probiotics a scam? No. I'm convinced it's not. And the gut bacteria is connected to ultimately the food source,
right,
and the soil itself.
Correct. So these spore-based organisms which
is why we do a Megaspore, is because it's soil-based, spore-based.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to part of when they were looking at different organisms that throughout in the past in mankind. Because see, really all these things that deal with gut problems have only occurred, I think some of the things I've heard, just it's more recently within human history.
Right, if you look at a 10,000-year history kind of thing.
And that's where when you start looking about from the Industrial Revolution on, when everything started changing, people lost touch with the soil and where their foods came from.
We're not just talking like a Thoreau, I need to go back to nature. You need to get the actual dirt in your body.
Exactly. We are too much of a sterile society.
Wow.
So to answer your question, probiotics are not a scam. It's finding the right probiotic. The vast majority of products out there are questionable because they are all bacteria that you quote find in your gut, but when you look at the entire gut, there's so many bacteria, and the concentrations of a lot of those bacteria are so high, like in the trillions. If you're taking something at this volume, it's not even going to affect, because by the time, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to die in the acidic. Your gut has a pH of 1 to 3. what gets really interesting is when you look at people's responses to different probiotics based on maybe what their acidity level is in their gut. Because one of the issues out there is not having enough hydrochloric acid in your gut to digest things appropriately.
Oh, wow.
And that, when you have a gut that doesn't have the right hydrochloric acid and you're not digesting right, that can lead to a host of issues as well as other bad bacteria that is growing that shouldn't be there.
So a probiotic doesn't, because does it go in and replace bacteria? Does it go in and like kill the bad bacteria? Does it go in and...
Specific strains, so bacteria, the thing that people have to realize is most bacteria is actually really good.
Right.
But there's some bacteria that can start off good, but when it gets combined with bad, actually becomes double bad. And that bacteria can talk to each other. Different species can talk to each other, but a lot of times the same species is doing certain things. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening for a lot of bacteria, the way they operate is they have to get to a certain level of concentration. And all of a sudden, when they get to a certain volume, they suddenly turn a switch and they all start doing something. So that's how some disease processes start.
Wow.
The term is called quorum sensing, and it just means they have to get to a certain...
Sure, quorum. Yeah, you need a certain amount of people to make a decision.
Right. And all of a
quorum,
sudden, boom, switches on and the bad things happen.
Wow.
Now,
so the probiotic does what? It goes into the gut and it's present. It grows.
Right. So by definition, a probiotic is taking in a good bacteria that should be able to manifest itself within the gut and be able to grow and promote itself.
Cool.
And that's so when you really get down to it, almost, the whole, this is a question I want to ask, like the real hardcore research on this. That is like in my mind.
Dr. Kieran.
Yeah. So people who've been taking this for a while that see all the great changes, like, can they just stop taking it?
Right. That's a great question.
But here's what I think. We are so far removed from what would have been natural sources of this that you have to keep taking to a certain degree an amount, because there's so many things that kill off the good stuff that we eat and that we're exposed to, that's the problem.
Great. I mean, that's a great question.
So
and that's also I don't know, that's kind of goes in line with a scammy question. Like the products that we're proposing, it's not, it could, we're hoping that there's improvement. We're hoping that there's good growth in your health so that you could eventually alleviate yourself of conditions and maybe even
not
have to
wave off,
right,
have to take it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a supplement for that exact reason. It's supplementing something.
Yeah, no, right. I mean, you're
Lack
right.
of.
If something's going to help make you better, you should need less of it, unless you have some sort of situation or condition where you're taking it because you're deficient. And that's where I think what I would argue, and I think maybe what would be said, because someday we will get to ask that question.
Yes, we're coming for you, Dr. Kieran Krishan.
My guess is that we are so exposed to different. I mean, well, here, for example, think about all the highly chlorinated water out there that you're drinking. And
I don't think about that.
I can smell it back home.
Really?
Yes.
You are from Michigan.
That water, like you chlorinate the water
Flint.
to kill bacteria. So then let's drink it into our gut. And that what happens to that chlorine, question. Right? Like, not to mention the fact that we're, like I said, an over-sterilized society. People didn't wash their hands before they ate their raw meat back in the day very much.
And you never heard of people having the issues that they have now.
Yeah, I mean, the human race has obviously been able to flourish.
Tenfold.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we've answered the question I wanted to ask in this conversation, which was, I think, persons who've heard of probiotics and they look at it and maybe they're skeptical like me, where it's like, oh, it's just a scam to make money. It's not. But you've elicited even more questions. Like, so then, for the person listening, what type of probiotic should they be taking? How much? All those kind of things. So. And you did some videos that speak specifically about Spore and answer these type of questions.
Yeah, right? I mean, it doesn't even have to. There's a few other brands that are coming out now that are the Spore-based one, and that's really what to me, that was the light bulb that went on when I heard Krishan's lectures and so forth. That, oh my gosh, like this makes
are these guys catching
sense.
Any heat from the industry then? Like all the other probiotics, are they getting attacked? Like, hey, you guys are full of false research.
What's impressive about Microbiome Labs, which is what Krishan's is that they're doing a lot of really good clinical research. So they've actually had published studies showing what they're
claiming.
That's cool. And their whole target is leaky gut and decreasing inflammation produced by having the dysbiosis in there. And they're doing...
What do you mean by dysbiosis?
Thank you. That just means you have an imbalance of the bacteria. Because you asked earlier about antibiotics and so forth. Bacteria, specific strains of bacteria actually have natural antibiotic properties. In fact, the way they used to...
Oh, wow.
Before antibiotics were discovered, the way that they would actually treat things naturally was by using different bacteria things to be able to counteract.
You're talking about back in like 1800s before they got penicillin, they would know what bacteria to put in someone's body?
I don't know the details, but in certain lectures I've heard
like
that's what they've talked about.
Take this dirt.
Is that they knew how to manipulate bacteria in a way that they could use beneficial bacteria to get rid of the bad bacteria. Wow. So see, in reality, these superbugs that are out there, the reason they're out there is because when people have taken multiple rounds of antibiotics, you've killed off all the good bacteria that would
do this this attack, this defense.
You're in an immunocompromised state,
Holy cow.
Because they just shredded your immune system, quote, is working like you have the right level of immune cells, but you just wiped out all of your beneficial bacteria, which is the actual trainee of the immune system.
Like Rocky to Apollo Creed kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
You just killed Rocky. No, because he killed Apollo, and then Rocky.
You knocked Rocky out.
Darn.
And it's just going to take. How are you going to get Rocky back?
It's like in Rocky 4. It's not so much like the end result. It's you see all the in between, all the hard work. Exactly. So it's all the hard work that's going on inside.
Yeah. Precisely.
Okay. This is very helpful.
So so the whole spore-based thing for people looking for a probiotic, I mean, the spore-based thing is proven. The bacillus spores are what they use in...
What do you mean by spore exactly?
Okay, so the spore form of the bacteria is a protective state that the bacteria goes into that can survive your gut's acidity. So that's what makes it actually work, is that when you take these other strains... So another thing is like if you have to refrigerate your probiotic. Right. Well, okay, what's your internal temperature of your body? You're 98.6. So I'm refrigerating my probiotic because I want to keep the bacteria alive, yet I'm going to take it into my body at 98.6.
Yeah, when you say that, I just do like the old duh moment and slap my forehead.
Hey, I promoted these probiotics, and there's so many things we take on face value because so-and-so said. That is how medicine has been practiced forever. But now the research...
Now, assure me that wasn't a scam. That was just the best knowledge at the time.
Correct. Best knowledge at the time.
We got to get these probiotics into people. They're going to survive in a refrigerated state, so boom.
Right. So here, another question that I have is all of these probiotics that I took growing up, that you took growing, that we've all been taking, where people say, hey, it did wonders. How much was it the probiotic versus placebo? Because there are plenty of studies where once you do throw placebo in there, people are saying they're better.
Yeah.
And how much was it that people who are committed to taking a probiotic were also committed to changing their diet? Because the other aspect is what you put in your mouth. The food is the medicine. That food you take, the reason it's medicine is that food you're taking actually feeds the right bacteria or the wrong bacteria. That's called prebiotics. Well, there's some matter that's actually prebiotic matter, but you have to think of it as the food that we're taking in primarily serves to service the good bacteria and promote the good bacteria, because some of the foods that we eat will promote both good and bad. So when you're trying to correct everything, you've got to sometimes do things to avoid certain foods so you decrease the bad bacteria. And then once you've got the volumes of bad bacteria down, you can start eating things again that help increase everything. But
so I'm going to connect some thoughts here for myself and maybe for some others. So you're saying, because when I ask the question, are probiotics a scam? And you say no, the next question would be like, oh, great, then I can take a probiotic and still eat whatever I want. But you just said, no, you can't do that because, in fact, the probiotic, the bacteria still need good food. They still need to not be killed off by bad food.
Correct.
And they still need a good environment to thrive and to provide the benefit. We have to incorporate good food and good water. You threw water in there before. Good food and water so that this bacteria can thrive, that the Amazon won't be destroyed. The Amazon rainforest that is our gut biome.
If you need a probiotic, then dietarily you've been fueling an unhealthy system.
So I've been eating bad food. I've been eating less than optimal food, and that bacteria that feeds on that food is thriving versus the good bacteria, the probiotic that I'm taking that needs good food.
You know, it's
Is this
actually
connecting, Justin? Does this make sense?
No,
I'm
just so
weave
happy
this
I have my
together.
own like Bill Nye next to me. Like,
no, it's actually much simpler than that. Honestly, I wouldn't even say bad food because, you know, I know at some point we're going to be able to dive in deep with the right resources to help people know what food is good. You know, because we all love food.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to talk about sugar for a second. The average person will consume 54 pounds of high fructose corn syrup in a year. Okay.
54 pounds, big bag of mulch.
Yeah. That's,
Wow.
Think about that for a second.
My brain does, my brain can't even comprehend that.
So when
54 pounds of sugar.
When you think
You said
about
over a year, that doesn't sound too much to me.
But here's the point I'm making is this. If people just did one thing, and that is watch the amount of sugar they consumed, if not completely eliminate it, all right? And I don't care if it's organic cane sugar. The word organic doesn't change the fact that it's still sugar, okay? I mean, natural sugars that you find in fruits and things you're
about
eating,
like the honeys and the maple syrups and the molasses, and
that's a different thing.
that is a different category.
It's a different category compared to processed sugars.
Compared to the granular sugar in my bag of
Correct
that I'm putting on my food and in my coffees, and
they're different. They're different entities.
Okay, that's good to know.
Right? I mean, look, honey is not high fructose corn syrup. You know, maple syrup is not that. Not that it can't. Like,
well, people, and myself included, often group it all together. Like it's a sweetener.
Yep.
I need to sweeten my food. I need to sweeten my life with my food, and so I put it in everything. That does a little role playing there, but like that's a common thing. And you're saying,
but you're not
saying,
eating,
let's separate
54
the two.
pounds of that.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't sound like a lot to me over the course of a year. But this is where I don't know. You're saying that is
Think
a lot.
about
for
how
a
many
person.
teaspoons would have to take to make a 50. Because remember, it's like, I mean, you're talking.
Okay, so you're talking about a pound a month, 54, 52 weeks, a pound a week. That sounds like a lot, actually. A pound a week of sugar, that is a lot. That's a good, there you go. Okay.
So how many teaspoons, right? So
yeah.
The main point I'm saying is if people just cut that out, because sugar is in everything. And sugar plays with your insulin levels. Sugar plays with...
What does sugar do to probiotics?
So sugar is going to fuel the wrong bacteria. Well, one, I mean, look at dental decay, right? I mean, Lord knows in my business, sugar, acid is what really drives decay. But what the bacteria that are eating your teeth apart really love once they've found their home is sugar. So sugar is like putting kerosene on the fire. Acid drives the bacterial growth, and the sugar works with it like kerosene on the fire to make it go like crazy. But there's a perfect example of where high sugar will increase the bad bacterial growth on your teeth.
Okay, so this is important. Again, when I growing up, and dentists and American media tells you sugar causes cavities, I pictured the sugar granules going into my teeth and like causing the cavity. But you're saying no, it's bacteria
100%.
that's doing its bad thing, like you said earlier. How if it grows to a certain amount, it then can
Correct. So
decay. So the sugar is feeding the bacteria on
you
my
get
teeth.
a cut on your arm. If it gets infected, it swells up and boils.
Yeah.
Right, and you get that, or a pimple,
redness and boils.
A bad pimple hurts like heck, swells up. You want to be able to pop that pimple. All right.
Yeah.
Well, your tooth, that's caused by bacteria, right? Pimples are caused by bacteria. Your tooth is hard tissue. You can't pop it. You can't, it's hard. So the bacteria gets in there from acid wearing away, creating a little nook and cranny. A bunch of bacteria gets together, forms a little membrane on top of it like a Band-Aid that can't come off. And they start cranking out acid, and it starts etching away your tooth, starts hollowing out a little hole. And then they start growing and multiplying, and they start eating and breaking things down.
And the sugar is feeding them.
And what the sugar does, correct. So sugar, when these specific strains of bacteria get that glucose, and they start munching on it, it actually increases acid production.
Wow. Okay. So now I'm going to connect. So then good probiotics in your gut, good bacteria in your gut is going to help reduce cavities because that that's connected.
Correct. Yeah, that's on that's the deeper level, is the fact that, in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, is that when you have a lot of dental decay, you definitely are going to have a dysbiosis in your gut. It's all related.
The dental decay, you as a dentist looking in the mouth, see dental decay, and you're connecting that to a dysbiosis.
Yeah, I'm saying.
So which came first, chicken or egg here? You're saying.
I think it's a great question. I mean, this is what has to be explored. This is what has to be studied, because I can't sit there now. I don't know of a test now where I can like run a bacterial assessment of the mouth and then know what the bacteria inside the gut's going to be. But what I can say is that anything that you can do to help your gut be better is going to be better off for your overall health.
Wow.
And in the end, is going to be better for your teeth, because odds are foods that, aren't high in sugar or have no sugar are going to be better for your gut. Okay.
There's a connection. Now I can connect those two.
And so you're eliminating the sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have to change the bacteria, but if you don't have the right good, where does the good bacteria in the mouth come from? I mean, we know that the bad bacteria comes from one of the primary parents or somebody who's in their saliva transmitted it. Okay. So, if one of the parents has a lot of cavities or active decay and they kiss that baby, that saliva gets transferred.
Out. Are you serious?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't. I'm learning. This is the quietest I've ever been, I think, on a recording. Like, I'm learning so much here. So keep going.
Yeah. So when you kiss that baby and you swap that saliva or you lick that spoon or whatever, you're colonizing them with the bad bacteria.
All this dads out there, when you clean the pacifier with your, hey, it fell on the floor. 5-second rule: clean with your own mouth and put in the babe's mouth. That's what I'm doing.
So, sorry. Okay, let's talk probiotics. Okay. We get colonized. So there's two ways of colonization. I should say two ways. You get your bacteria primarily from your moms and pops and from the environment, right? Okay.
Is there a percentage there? Can you say 50%?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know. It's what I can tell you is that everyone's biome is different, but you will share similarities to whatever group you're around. Okay. Like your environment.
Okay.
All right. And different biomes are different across the whole world because, again, it's the environment. Sure, so let's go back to the plant. Okay. If every human.
What about within the United States? Sorry, let's go back to.
It would be different based on different regions.
Yeah.
Because it's your environment. So, the plants that we eat, the food that we eat, where it comes from, the dirt that we get on our hands, there's huge studies right now where they're looking at that if, the difference between someone born via C-section and coming through a vaginal canal. There's huge differences in predisposition towards allergies and asthma for both. I definitely sometimes see patterns on things when I ask those questions, when I'm looking to try and find nuances. And when it comes to dental decay, for example, one other thing is that Candida is actually shown to have a high relationship.
What is Candida?
Oh, Candida is overgrown yeast.
Yeast?
Yeah, it's a yeast. But it's actually a naturally occurring one.
Yeast that I put in bread to make it rise?
I don't know.
So
I don't know my different yeasts. No, yeast is different. Yeast is not bacteria.
Oh, see that. So because we're talking probiotics, so yeast is not a bacteria.
Yeast is fascinating.
Really?
The more I'm learning about it, but I'm not by any means an expert on that.
Okay. Let's find one.
I know this would be a really interesting question because.
Go ahead.
A phenomenal lecture that I heard talked about how the yeast relates to how certain things are moved around in the gut when it's a healthy and in a right balance. But what happens is high sugar can definitely cause yeast overgrowth, and that
my stomach, you're saying?
In your stomach and in your whole body, and
on your skin, your feet.
Yeah, athletes, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean those are all different types of yeast. Okay. Women are probably most common because they always have their yeast infection. I mean that's where their bodies get unbalanced. Sometimes people will have yeast uncontrolled in their mouth depending on what type of systemic condition they have. But the point I'm making is sugar makes that thrive. And when the Candida interacts with the bacteria for dental decay, it becomes super aggressive, increases the stickiness of the biofilm. So again, it's that sugar that's driving that. So I guess we kind of went on a tangent here, but the point I wanted to make is for people listening, one thing that they can do is start paying attention to the volume of sugar that they eat.
54 pounds.
If they just got rid of that, forget changing the other foods you're eating. You're going to make such a significant change in your overall health just because you're not putting bad fuel in to fuel the bad microbes.
I am trying to picture an infographic in my head right now, and there's a giant 54-pound bag of sugar and what that causes, and then what that could be eliminated.
All the different increments.
Yeah, like, you know, you see those infographics. Okay, so I want to wrap this up for the sake of my mind. I started this conversation out pretending to be someone else, and then I became real in my question.
I loved it.
Like, this is,
I watched the whole thing happen. It was beautiful.
I mean, so I started this out pretending to try to presume a question in some of our listeners' minds, and then these became my real questions. So I think, yeah, we broached several key topics. Let's spin this out into some other conversations around all these things. So thanks, Dr. Phil, for engaging in the questions. Justin, thanks.
No, I thank you both, because
and let's.
I can't wait to write a bunch of stuff. I will. Thank you. That was awesome.
And so let's also always ask for your questions, comments, and anything from the audience. We really would like to obviously engage and get your thoughts on what we talked about here. And you can ask simple questions like I started out with, are probiotics a scam? You know, Dr. Phil said a lot of things here, and if any that didn't doesn't make sense, you can also ask those questions.
Exactly. Because I think we answered it, right? Like, it's not a scam because your body's a walking rainforest.
No. Yeah.
But then the next question is, well, where do you go from there? And then how do you know it's working, right?
Yeah, that's actually the next question we could ask. It's in the mind of a lot of persons who are ready to try a probiotic, or who have tried one that hasn't worked, and they still hear about great stories of people taking probiotics, changing their life. So, yeah, let's just keep presuming questions and hopefully we get some real ones. And thanks for this conversation. So,
thanks for the question.
All right.
Good job, guys.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Integrative Health Chats. If you took just one pearl away, one nugget that's helping you to look at health differently that will change your life, please share this podcast with your friends. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, please leave us a comment or question. Your health is so important to us. And while we don't have all the answers, we do know that together we can achieve so much more. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at IHChats, or you can send us an email at IHChats@IHSUPPS.com. That's IHChats@IHSUPPS.com. It's been our pleasure to spend this time with you, and until next time, please take one step each day to live a healthier and happier life. Have a great day.